but especially the Baptists, and it really got intense about seeking. All the groups that I had never actually belonged to, I studied. What do they teach and why? Non-Christian religions included. And so at one point I kind of talked to my wife about this a little bit, and she wasn't real open to it at that time. She didn't say no, but it's like, I wasn't far enough along to want to push the issue, so I just kept studying. And then by the end of our 4 years at the Southern Baptist, it became the end of our 4 years because I just decided, I was convinced I really needed to become a Catholic. I had been, and I guess to back up just a little bit, after I left the seminary, that was January of 85, and in January of 86, I started with the Kentucky Department of Social Services. I was working downtown Lexington, and back then they still had the Catholic churches open, and sometimes I would stop in those churches to pray just because they were open, and I would sense the Lord's presence there in a way I never sensed it anywhere before, or anywhere else. And I was like, what is that? And one of these churches had a literature rack of literature that was either free or a quarter, little pamphlets. And I started picking those up and reading them. And for the first time, I let the Catholic Church speak for itself instead of listening to what other non-Catholics said about the Catholic Church. And so for the first time, I read their teachings about the Eucharist. I was like, oh, well, that's what that is, And being a good Baptist boy who read my Bible, really liked Scripture, I'd always had trouble with John chapter 6. What do you do with John chapter 6? And no preacher's ever preached on John chapter 6, And then it's like, okay, well, now John chapter 6 makes sense when I look at that. So those experiences with the Eucharist long before I was a Catholic were a huge push in that direction. And those little pamphlets addressed other issues too, like, a hierarchical system of church government and the concept of authority in the church. It's, this real authority that keeps people from going where all these folks at Lexington Theological Seminary have been going. That's that role of sacred tradition, Our Lady, various devotions.
The saints, I'm sure, was a big issue.
It didn't really bother me so much, but it was more of the theological issues for me. Although, here I was a Baptist deacon, and I decided to make this move. So I wrote a letter to my brother deacons and sent it to them a couple of weeks before our next deacons meeting, so they had time to read it. And we had our meeting, and they were very polite and cordial. They had read it and understood it. They didn't agree with it, but there was no rancor, no name calling or finger pointing. But we all agreed that I needed to go wherever else the Lord might be leading me at that point. So we started going to St. Luke's Catholic Church in Nicholasville, and that was in May. My wife got her annulment very quickly because it was a defective form case, and she had been raised and confirmed Catholic, and in her first marriage had married outside the church. Very, very quick case, and so we got remarried at the end of June, and our daughter, who was 2 at that time, got baptized the next day. And then that fall, I went through RCIA and came into the church at Easter Vigil of '93.